Hello, welcome to Bike Matters. My name is Alex and this is the Harley Davidson Pan America 1250 Special. And is this the bike that all adventure riders should be riding? Let's find out. So the Pan America 1250 Special retails at a price brand new for 2023 starting at £18,895. You can also add in spoked wheels for £750. This one, as you can see, is grey haze, which is £375 on top. Then you've also got a few other different options. You've got the industrial yellow for 2023, which is yellow and white. Very peculiar styling in my opinion. The classic original one that came out was orange and white, and that looked really nice. But in any case, this bike is very different looking, and the Pan America Special in particular comes kitted out with all sorts of bits. Naturally, you've got the 1250 Revolution Max engine with 150 odd brake horsepower and around 128 Newton meters of torque. Huge numbers for this bike, and it is really good fun to ride. Elsewhere, as you can see, you've got the top box and pannier system, you've got knuckle guards, adjustable screen. You've got this sort of different looking front portion, of course, standard from the initial release model, but it's kind of like a muscle American classic car vibe going on with a corner light up here as well. Interesting stuff. This one's also got the adaptive ride height, so when you pull to a stop, it will sink down, and when you're going slow, it will sink down into lower mode. So if you're a shorter rider, i.e. Brett, or if you're just like wanting to get your feet down easier and it's a little bit of a distance for you, it will sit down. I have ridden this one off-road at the Harley Davidson Adventure Centre out in Wales, and that was with Mick Extons, and that was a fantastic day, I've got to say. This bike basically came out of the crate with knobblies on, and that's all they did. You've got 9 rider modes to play with, and some of those are off-road and customizable off-road options. And I've got to say, this bike was really surprising to ride off-road. It's 258 kilograms wet in running order. This one with accessories is going to be a little bit more naturally. But this thing just really surprised me off-road. It's a really natural position that you jump into. You've got your bear trap pegs, so you take out the little rubber inserts. And it's a nice, comfortable position that you're sort of commanding the bike, and you're nice and able to just like flick it into the off-road course that they have there in Wales. And I was really blown away by how that rode off-road. We did a little jaunt on-road, but I can't really comment on the on-road performance there because the bike was caked in mud, the front wheels and knobblies with mud on, and we were only on road for about 5 minutes. But with this one that we've had in for the first week and a bit, this one is really good on road, basically. I took it out to the Triumph factory visitor experience to look at the Speed 400 and Scrambler 400X. Check out those videos if you haven't already. This bike was just really nice and easy to ride for a long distance, and that was a tour of about 200-ish miles in the day, 250, 300 miles. It's so stable at speed. That Revolution Max engine, when it's got into its stride, it's just so easy to work with. Stability, powerful, it's still got power in abundance when you're sitting at 70 miles per hour. The revs are nice and low, around about 4,000, just over 4,000 revs per minute. And when you roll on the throttle, even in 6th gear, it still has that torque to pull you and get to allegedly triple digit. When that's up there, of course, the motor's going to be just drinking fuel. It's around about 22.8 litres tank, and that will get you 200 miles of range, but that depends on how you ride. If you're really economical with your throttle and riding in high gears all the time, so you're cruising at 30 in like 4th or even 5th gear, this bike will sound a bit clunky and it might not enjoy it, but you know that the miles per gallon is going to be right up there. But what I'm trying to say is that this can't necessarily do the long distance riding when you're enjoying it, because that engine, with all of its power and all of its torque, is a thirsty monster. So if you're feeding it with all of the fuel with an open throttle, it's just going to disintegrate your range. But sometimes you have to weigh that up. Do you fill up more and have more fun and get there quicker, allegedly, potentially? I don't know. Anyway, moving on, because there's so much to talk about on this bike, and I feel like as a first impressions review, we need to cover all the bases really. Suspension on the Special here is semi-active and it's from Showa. It's adjustable through the TFT display, so you get it in a sporty mode and you can adjust the ride height, the preload, and the sort of automatic adaptive ride height feature is what I meant to say. When you jump into the TFT, you can basically configure all of that with the custom modes and how the bike performs. And overall, the suspension does a fantastic stand-up job. When you're riding on this, as I say, stability is second to none really. Well, actually, there's a lot of bikes that are really stable, like the Multistrada, the Tracer 9 GT Plus. This bike is really stable at speed, and it's just so nice knowing that this suspension can do the off-road bits if you're an adventure rider that actually would take this bike off-road, and it can also do the long distance touring miles. Naturally, as you can see, it's a bit of a two-up machine here because the top box has the seat rest and then you've got the grab rails, which are plastic, which is a bit confusing because for a bike that weighs that much, jumping onto the center stand, you want a bit of just metal action at the back, not plastic grab rail, because you feel like you're just going to snap it. And if you're riding particularly hard and your pillion passengers holding on to the grab rails, maybe they're going to snap because they're really into the ride. Anyway, it's all set up for a two-up tour, and in my opinion, this thing can definitely do it. Right, so moving into the braking, you've got twin disc at the front, and it's a 320mm disc setup with 4 piston Brembos. At the rear, you've got a 280mm disc with a single pot caliper. And the brakes are linked electronically. So when you put on the rear brake, which is really, really gentle and barely feels like it's tickling that back brake disc, when you put that on, nothing really happens. When you activate the front, there is a little bit more urgency to the stop. Well, quite a bit more urgency to the stop. But it's just a peculiar design choice where I'm gonna have to find out why they've done it like this. The rear brake doesn't necessarily do much on its own, but the front activates a little bit of the rear and slows you down nicely. Now, I don't know whether that's because maybe off-road you want to trail a little bit of brake and don't want to be stamping on, but it's just confusing. You know, if you enter an off-road mode, maybe it will do that, but the road mode surely would allow you to put a little bit more pressure on the brake lever and start stopping you nicely from the back, rather than just not really do much at all. So it's one that we'll try and find out for the final thoughts video. Moving elsewhere, there's a few bits that I'll touch on now that aren't as ideal. Now, the gearing and the gear lever in particular on this is a little bit hit or miss. You've got 6 gears and it is chain driven, and this one's got a quick shifter actually. But when you're going through the gears, if you load the gear shifter in any way when you're looking to shift the bike, the auto blipper will come in and it just starts to really play up with the way that the bike reacts to how you want to shift. And shifting in general, you've got to hoik your foot in, tucked in there, and really be positive with your gear shifts. If you lift up but not all the way up, so do maybe 3/4 of a lift, the gearbox doesn't assist you into that next gear. It will either find a false neutral or it will just rev and just get really confused and flick back down into the lower gear. So you have to be quite forceful and positive with your gear changes here. And that's something that I found it can be a little bit of a miss. So where the quick shifter starts to get engaged and it engages that next gear, but doesn't quite click into the next gear because you haven't been quite forceful enough, the bike just gets all unsettled and it just doesn't like it. So naturally, there's a few points on this that I'll have to figure out to get into the final thoughts video, so the one that's going to follow this video. But one thing that I've got to say is when this first came out, so the initial launch model of the Pan America 1250 in the special version, reliability concerns from owners and journalists that were doing it long term did start to rear their heads a little bit. And naturally, Harley Davidson are going to be addressing those in future iterations. And this 2023 model we've had hasn't had any glaring problems, but there has been one bit that's jumped out at us literally when I was putting the pannier kit back on, which I'll say, very nice and easy, but the key literally just broke out of the lock whilst I was locking it back on. And key out, I had the whole locking cylinder on the end of the key. And now there's just a hole. We can't get into the pannier anymore, so we can't take it off. It just lives on there and you can't access the box at all. Very bizarre because all I was doing is locking the pannier back on. But now it's just non-functional. So sorry about that, Harley Davidson. But then that does raise a question mark over the reliability and the sort of ongoing parts there. But I'm just saying it as I see it. Another point that we found here at Bike Matters, using this as like a daily commuter and a runner about, the side stand is the most peculiar system we've ever seen at Bike Matters. It works, and right now the bike is nice and stable on its side stand. It's not going anywhere. But to get it onto its side stand, you have to flick the bike right to then let the spring-loaded side stand come out, be fully extended out there, and then be placed onto the side stand. So you're going to have to, if the bike's fully laden, tip it a little bit against the opposite direction you want it to be, get the side stand out, and then hoik it back over. Very bizarre, because then you could be at risk of dropping a bike. And when this bike arrived, the crash bars that are on here had a few scuffs in them. So I don't know whether the person who had this bike before was testing out the extent of how much that side stand needs to go out and dropped it. I don't know. But it's just a very bizarre one. I don't know why it's like that. So the tank size is 21.2 litres, and they say that it can do 51 miles per gallon, but I found that probably closer to around 40 miles per gallon. I would tell you the exact way that it says it on the TFT display, but it doesn't actually display the consumption, it just tells you the range remaining. So when you fill it up, it will go all the way to like say 220 miles or whatever it will say on there. But then that will deplete and it doesn't actually show you the sort of rate it's depleting in terms of average consumption. Bit confusing, should be able to do it, but it can't. Whilst we're talking about the dash, it's a TFT display, really nice and clear. It's about 6 point something inches long, 6.7. And it's really nice and clear. It takes ages to boot up. So when you flick on the bike, because it's keyless, it will try and find the key nearby, it will find the key, activate it, and then a Harley logo comes up, goes away, and it's just black for a little bit, and you just sort of sit there waiting. It's Bluetooth connected as well, so you can get your smartphone connected on there, turn-by-turn display, music, calls, messages, all that sort of fun stuff. And if you get the Harley Davidson app installed on your phone, then that activates the turn-by-turn navigation. You can then also pair up your intercom, your Bluetooth headset, and that's all through the TFT display as well. I've got it to work on the first couple of times of using it, but then once I filled up, turned the bike back on, tried to connect again, and my intercom just wouldn't connect. So it was a bit of a faff, and I was there for about 5 minutes trying to get it sorted. Then just decided I couldn't be asked anymore and just got back on the road. So TFT display, really nice. The switch gear, a little bit superfluous. You've got a load of buttons that don't really add to the experience at all. Heated grips work really nicely, but don't get super hot. They get sort of a nice toasty temperature and they work nicely with one button. Great. Then you've got a sort of mode circling button that changes the display of what it's showing you. That could be separated with the up and down feature that just does that anyway. You press up and down and you go up and down through what it displays. You've got a switch sort of menu option, so it can show you the map or it can show you the normal home display. And that can then be mapped to the home button and it does that fine, you know, but you could just go left and right, I'm not really sure. Then you've got the indicator button and that's really, really weird because left and right works fine, but if you cancel it, it's a really soft press and it doesn't actually click into anything. You can be, say, indicating left, cancel it, and then the right indicator will turn on because it's detected a little bit of movement. The way that I remedied that was by just long pressing and holding in the indicator button, and it would just decide, oh, you want to cancel the indicator now. It does have lean sensitive cancelling of the indicators or just time sensitive. And when that activates, absolutely fine, but it should be able to be done manually. So it's a bit of a weird one with that. Elsewhere, you've got fog lights on this one and auxiliary lights, and they all work really nicely, and cornering light up here as well. So lovely in terms of lights and display, but the switchgear just feels a little bit too much. I'm just not sure why they've gone with that. You've also got span adjustable levers whilst we're sticking up front. Another thing that's really annoyed me is that this bike is keyless ignition, which should be great, but you've got two separate keys for this model in particular. So you've got the steering lock and the petrol tank, and then the top box, I believe, is a different key with the panniers to be another key. So you've got two keys and they all operate different things on the bike. So for instance, you've just locked the steering lock, you want to access the top box, that's a different key. Don't understand why they've done that. If it's a keyless system, make it at least one key to do everything and then make it a little remote to pop everything and do everything through the remote, maybe? I don't know. But for a bike that's £24,000, the keyless system, for me, should just be bang on and work every time. Right, so let's round this video up because this is just really a first impressions with some spec and covering a bike as a whole. Realistically, this bike is a road bike, fantastic. It is still a Harley Davidson and therefore it's got that price associated, but is it the best adventure bike that's being missed? I'm not quite sure. Some of the other competitors on the market have been doing this for years. I mean, you look at the GS, you look at the KTMs of the world, even like the Triumph Tiger, and just basically the abundance of choice out there for adventure bikes. This is certainly an alternative option. You know, this is packed with tech. It's got the adaptive ride height, which is a sort of revolutionary feature. It's got that V-twin Revolution Max motor, and then it's got all of the electronic gadgetry and off-road modes and stuff like that that all work really seriously well. But then there's just the other points of like little things that don't really add up. I mean, one thing that I haven't yet mentioned, I just remembered, when you go full lock on this 18-inch accessory screen, the knuckle guard will hit the screen. And though it can take that, it's just little things that just sort of chip off a bit. And you're thinking, for £24,000, do I want that? Probably not. Now, that's not to say it's not a good bike. This is a fantastic bike to ride, both on and off-road from when I've ridden it now and before. It's great fun, but for the price you're paying, and if you're looking at this as like an adventure bike to go off-road, I'm not quite sure. I mean, let's go into some pros and cons. So the pros itself, I would say that this is an alternative option. That is a pro, because it's not just going to go down the traditional route of like the Japanese manufacturers or, you know, the BMW GSs of the world. This is a sort of out of left field option that you're not going to see too many on the road at the moment. But then when you do, you think, oh, nice. And it's a Harley, so it's a bit different. It's got that little bit of je ne sais quoi about it. Second point is that this engine is fantastic. And the way that it rides and handles on the road, I guess is point 3, it's so stable, but it's got so much power and it's just beautiful to ride with, I've got to say. You know, jumping on this for a long tour, especially when I rode to Triumph and back in the day, no problems with this at all. You know, it's nice and comfortable. You can tuck in and you just have no real deflections. It's a nice rolling weight of bike, and it just feels really nice to ride. Negative points, I'd say the rear brake with the link braking system just really confuses me. The rear brake to me should be one that you can stamp on, and yeah, the ABS might come on, but if you're in a pinch and you really need to crank off some speed, my instinct sometimes is just push down on the rear as well as pull the front in. If you push down on the rear and not a lot happens, it's a bit of a weird one for me. The second point that I don't like is the fact that the pannier bust on me. Putting in the key and turning the lock, and the lock just comes along with it and just locks in the contents of the pannier. Just bizarre. No idea what happened there, and I don't think it's a good thing at all. So then the final point, and then there's a sort of point and a half. I don't like the gearing. It just feels a little bit too clunky. I want it to feel precision. I want it to be there every time, especially if you're using a quick shifter and you're standing up. You know, if you go halfway through and you don't quite lift enough, which can be quite awkward when you're riding off-road, if it half engages the blipper and then you're up on the bike and it just gets a sudden burst of torque or revs, not fun at all. And a sort of half point is the fact that it's the keyless system, but there's keys everywhere. Just give us a key. We can just use one key, or a keyless system with a little button remote that can just pop the top box or something like that. That would be fantastic. But in any case, those are the pros and cons. We're going to have the full final verdict in a following video, the final thoughts and a little onboard review as well, so you can see this bike really being put to paces on some nice roads that are local to us. So subscribe to stay up to date with that one. To answer my question at the start, is this the adventure bike that everyone's missed out on? I don't think so, but it's also a nice alternative option. So if you're really looking at this, you want a bike to feel like a Harley Davidson, which they've mastered, because you sit there feeling like it's a bit of a cruiser adventure bike, give it a go. Give it a little ride and see what you think. Or even just go off-road to Wales and meet Mick Extance and have a play with him on off-road bits. Quite fun. In any case, comment down below what you think of the Pan America Special, and let us know if this is the adventure bike that could take Harley Davidson into some new territories. That'd be interesting. Thank you very much for watching. Like the video whilst you're there. Ciao, and I'll see you on the next one.